Hello and welcome to Why Wasn't It Better? I'm your host, Patrick Darms.
And I'm your co-host, Tom Paradiso.
We have a return guest, Tom Paradiso. Welcome back.
Thank you for having me. Thrilled to be back for this mission.
You've chosen to accept it?
Yeah.
I've chosen to accept this mission.
This is going to be a fun one because you've been on now for 2 Batmans, 2 Bonds, something else that's I can't remember.
Gall.
That's why I couldn't remember. That's a Gall. Yeah. That was the one you regretted. You're like, did I have to watch this? And now it's a Mission Impossible.
Rewatching this movie was a tough mission.
It was more entertaining than
Sorry for
the Seagal movie, wasn't it?
Yes, but apologies for the third bad pun. We'll move away.
No, keep them coming. You don't want to come back for Under Siege 2 next season? I put it on the list.
Under Siege 2.
Dark territory.
Hard pass.
Was that Katherine Heigl? Was she
Yep.
daughter?
Niece.
Yeah, that's right. That's
yeah. It's his niece.
Can't be right.
I don't know. I think it's better than the first one. But I'm also going off like a 25-year-old memory, and I'm 99% sure I'm going to be proven wrong.
There's a high likelihood of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I've offered that episode to a couple people, and all of them, everyone said no.
What's harder, that or Jaws 2?
Oh, that.
That one.
I don't understand. Jaws 2 is not a bad movie.
It's not as bad as people think, but it's also...
I like Jaws 2. I do. I don't think it's a bad movie. It's not good.
Yeah.
Was 3 the 3D one?
Yep.
Yeah.
Jaws 3D.
In the water park?
Yeah.
You're familiar with Jaws 2, right? Like Roy Scheider's in it. It's not bad.
Very vaguely. I wouldn't give an opinion. Not enough to give an opinion.
All right. Well, we can talk about Mission.
Piranha 3D. I got an opinion on Piranha. The Riverview Theater in Manayunk, where I saw that one.
Oh, Manayunk. Nobody's favorite. Well, we can talk about Mission Impossible 2. Originally, Anton, the plan was we were going to cover as like a double feature Dead Reckoning Part 1 and Dead Reckoning Part 2, which is coming out when this episode comes out, although it's actually called The Final Reckoning for whatever reason. They seem to have messed that up. But we realized both of us are having life-changing events pretty soon. We're probably not going to be able to make it to the theater.
Fair.
And we covered the first Mission Impossible when Dead Reckoning Part 1 came out, so why not cover the second one when this 8th film comes out?
It's like poetry. It rhymes.
Yeah, it rhymes. What if George Lucas had directed this? You think it would have been better or worse?
Worse.
You sure?
I think so.
What do you think he would have made CGI? More things?
At least we see real mountains in this. There'd be CGI mountains.
I have a thought about the mountains in this, though. We'll get to that.
Oh, it's all a metaphor. I hate it.
Anyway, so anything to bring up before we start this? Or do you want to get right in?
Do you want to make any bold predictions on the Super Bowl to date this episode even more, Tom?
No, definitely not. I was going to avoid it. No. I was just going to say, I was going to vaguely say that my voice is, I'm from Philadelphia, and I kind of lost my voice. Take a guess when we recorded.
Okay.
But now you've put a hard cut on that. But
on the timing. Oh, it's fine.
Different ways people could interpret that, though.
It's true.
Anyway. In the second Mission Impossible film, Hong Kong action director John Woo brings his own brand of excitement to the mission that finds Ethan Hunt partnering up with the beautiful thief Nia Hall to stop renegade IMF agent Sean Ambrose from releasing a new kind of terror on an unsuspecting world. The film was released on May 24th, 2000 by Paramount Pictures and Cruz Wagner Productions. Directed by John Woo, screenplay by Robert Towne, with story credits for Ronald D. Moore and Brannon Braga, sounds like an alias, based on Mission Impossible by Bruce Geller, the TV series, starring Tom Cruise, Tandy Newton, Dougray Scott, Ving Rhames, Richard Roxburgh, John Polson, Brendan Gleeson, and Rade Serbadija. The budget was $125 million, that is $228 million adjusted for inflation. And the box office was $546 million. That is $1 billion adjusted for inflation. This was the number one movie of 2000. No surprise. Tom, as the guest, why did you want to talk MI2?
Well, the series is definitely a favorite in our house. And I saw the first couple in the theaters. The first one, I think, is one of the best spy thrillers. Like, that's been made, in my opinion. I think very highly of it still. I think it's a great movie. It's well paced, good tension.
Agreed.
This one hadn't watched, was really excited for it when it came out, but I also remember when it came out, like immediately not thinking very, like walking out of the theater kind of laughing at how cringe some of the scenes were, especially consider the high hopes. So I was looking forward to coming and maybe being a little more negative than I've been on some of the reviews. I think, like it's fun to talk about movies you like. It's also equally fun to talk about things you didn't like. And this is an interesting one where I had forgotten when I was thinking about this, the Steven Seagal movie we did, because there's no way that got a good ranking. But I was wondering if this would be the lowest ranking I've given on a film yet.
I'd be surprised if you ranked it lower than
I don't think I can.
the Seagal film.
I really can't. That was just trash.
Yeah. But. On deadly ground. I saw this in theaters as well. I have to admit, 12-year-old Pat was satisfied by it. I didn't love it, but I remember thinking, like, that was pretty cool. But I also thought Limp Bizkit was pretty cool when I was 12 years old. So
right.
More on that later. I said it's the biggest movie of 2000. Yeah, this movie was huge. Like, the hype for this was huge. It came out. It obviously made the money. It was
staggering. That amount of money.
Yeah, I mean, like, by all measurables, it's one of the most successful sequels ever. Not just of its era. I mean, $1 billion in today's money says it all. I didn't see the first one in the theater. I was a little young for that at the time, but it was a staple of rentals. I saw it when it was released on VHS. I loved it. I'm with you. We reviewed the first one very early in the podcast. I love the first one. I actually think the first one's pretty underrated. I don't think it gets quite the respect that it deserves. I'm with you, Tom. I think it's one of the best spy thrillers ever. And I am quite fond of the series Mission Impossible overall. This one's an outlier for a lot of different reasons. It was supposed to come out sooner than 2000, but Cruise's commitments to Eyes Wide Shut pushed this back by a full year. It has a bad rap. To your point, Tom, it didn't get great reviews when it came out. A lot of people clowned on it at the time. I don't think its reputation has changed all that much over the years. Of course, there are always going to be people that like it, but it's still the black sheep of the series.
It's the Too Fast, Too Furious of the Mission Impossible series.
Yeah, I actually wrote down it's the Die Another Day of the series, but I like that too.
But isn't Too Fast, Too Furious an underrated masterpiece?
Maybe. Has it been revisited yet?
Not on this show.
We were actually talking about it yesterday, how we should review it.
Well, that one was a little later. I remember it also had a bit more, and we'll talk about this, I'm sure, but this got a little darker than the first one. Because, did Tom Cruise even shoot a gun in the first Mission Impossible?
No, he does not fire a gun in the first one.
Right.
He makes up for it here. He has 2 guns.
Ooh, that's John Woo.
The same thing with Too Fast, Too Furious. And I think that was just common around that time. It's like, well, you got to dial everything up a little bit. It's got to be a little more intense. It's got to be a little bit harder. And that was kind of, I think some people were hoping for that with John Woo. Not to again step on future parts of the pod, but
no, you're right.
That was appealing.
That was part of the hype.
Yeah, I think that it's interesting to consider the box office versus the critical reception. The fact it was delayed for Eyes Wide Shut, the backlash Tom Cruise had from Eyes Wide Shut, just for him, his career, I would say that this shows that Eyes Wide Shut was a blip in terms of like box office viability for him. And I'm going to jump in with something I wrote down. I noticed it. I've watched this movie 3 times recently for the pod. Once, like way out, because I think probably around the time when Dead Reckoning came out. Then I tried to watch it again like a few weeks ago. Didn't make it through it, and then watched it again now. And at least 2 times, especially early in this movie, that I think this is peak Tom Cruise. In terms of like his age and his sex appeal, as said as a straight man, like he is very appealing in this movie. This is like, in my opinion, the best he's ever looked.
Yeah, because he was, what, 37?
I checked. He's like 37, 38. Like,
yeah, this Vanilla Sky, very handsome Tom Cruise.
He's old enough that it's not boyish. It's like...
Yeah, good point.
It's the perfect... Because, like Risky Business, others, like he's like a young, very young, like boyish, good-looking guy. But like they played it up like with his hair, and especially compared to now, where like some pictures you see and you're like, I don't know if he had a procedure done or what, or he was like a little inflated, swollen, and his age is showing. He's not a young man anymore. But this was like peak.
Yeah. Well, it is interesting too, because Eyes Wide Shut took so long to make that he basically had a 3-year gap in his career. You know, what, to your point, the height of his career.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know if it was the height of his career, because his career still,
It's
like,
it's just stayed.
He's the outlier of all outliers when it comes to careers and like peaks. I think you're right. His physical peak was probably now, but like, I don't even know if I could call this his financial peak of his career, because it might not be. It might have been the Top Gun sequel. I don't know.
I might between Top Gun sequel and like the 6th Mission Impossible,
Yeah.
5th or 6th, those two.
So this is the outlier in the series, Anton, and yet it does follow the template of every other Mission Impossible movie. It's not like it breaks the mold in terms of the story structure.
No, it just what is it? A different road to get to the destination?
It's a very polite way of putting it. A very different slow motion road, would you call it?
A road that leads to two motorcycles facing each other.
Yeah. And a 10-minute fight on a beach with rocks. Anton, what's your history with this one?
Going back to 2000, this was peak loving video games and loving action films, Anton. And I really do think that it's important within that context to know that when I saw this in theaters, I did like it, but I did find myself not wanting to go back again to the theaters to see it again. I was like, it was a little different for me at that age. I was also more leaning towards playing like on the PlayStation 2. So that was definitely my experience with the film. Now, of course, it's a great series, and this is a interesting film within that series, especially considering John Woo is one of my favorite directors of all time. Like, a lot of the films that he's made for Hong Kong cinema are on my list for, just films I love and enjoy. So it's really interesting to see how he transitioned into directing films in the US. I mean, I still put on Face Off a lot, which is also a very unique film. But here we are with Mission Impossible 2.
I'm with you on John Woo. I think I'm the only person who likes Broken Arrow.
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to unmute there. I was going to bring that up too.
Broken Arrow?
Yeah, Broken Arrow.
Oh, are you a fan too?
I mean, like Face Off, Broken Arrow, I saw all those movies in the theater.
Hard Target's pretty good.
Hard Target is pretty good.
Yeah. This was absolutely the peak of John Woo's career. Like, no question about it. His Hollywood career, I should say. Obviously, he had a Hong Kong career before this, but you'd agree with that, right, Anton? Like, this is his peak.
Yeah, and like he did fine after this. You know,
he did.
Like, he made a lot of money when he got back to Hong Kong and also did films for mainland. So his career, I think, has served him well, and he's able to kind of look back and say, I experimented in the US. It's almost like I experimented with acid in the 60s. But
he had a tremendous amount of success in Hollywood until he didn't with Paycheck.
True that. But he came back.
Yeah. In streaming, right?
In streaming and in one theater release film, like late in 2023, Silent Night. I don't know if either of you guys have heard of that one.
I heard of it, but I didn't see it.
I saw it. It feels like a complete B movie, but it absolutely
It was theaters or like streaming Netflix.
It had a theatrical release, but I think more so just majorly streaming.
All right, production history then. So almost immediately upon the release of the first Mission Impossible film in May 1996, Paramount wanted a sequel. Cruise asked Brian De Palma, who directed that film, to return to direct the sequel, but De Palma didn't want to. Filming was going to begin in mid-97 and intended for a summer 98 release, but Cruise's commitment to Eyes Wide Shut meant that this was delayed. Actually, not 1, but 2 years. At one point, Oliver Stone was going to direct, but he backed out after a lengthy delay. Wild to think about. An Oliver Stone Mission Impossible. I think it would have been pretty good.
I could see it.
Yeah, he knows how to direct action. William Goldman wrote the first script, but none of that made it into the final film. Michael Tolkien, Joe Esterhaz, the screenwriter of Showgirls, and Wesley Strick wrote and rewrote the script before the assignment was given to Robert Towne, who had, of course, worked on the first film. Towne revealed that much of his script was written around action scenes that John Woo told him he wanted to be able to direct in the movie. Cruise offered the director's job to John Woo after seeing Face Off. Not really surprising. Face Off was a huge movie. Dougray Scott turned down the role of Wolverine in the first X-Men film to do this. Yes, that is right. Hugh Jackman was a last-minute replacement. Now, obviously, in hindsight, that is a pretty terrible decision. But at the moment, I don't think it would have been seen that way, right? Superhero movies were not really a proven commodity then. And Mission Impossible 2, that seemed like a sure thing. And it was a sure thing. It was the biggest movie of 2000, but it didn't elevate to a Gray Scott's career. Anton, think about that. What if he had been Wolverine?
We would have had a very different relationship between Gray Scott and Ryan Reynolds.
I don't even think it gets that far. Do you see the first X-Men even doing well with him as Wolverine? I don't.
No, even then though, that wasn't the most fully realized version of Wolverine in that film.
No, but he was certainly like one of the highlights of it. I remember like seeing that movie and like, wow, this guy who played Wolverine was great.
Yeah, but it definitely would not have been as good.
Tom Cruise's then wife, Nicole Kidman, suggested Tandy Newton for the love interest. She was cast before the script was completed. Because of conflicting schedules, she was forced to drop out of Charlie's Angels. Ian McKellen was offered the part of Mission Commander Swanbeck, but he turned it down, so Anthony Hopkins took it. Town later stated that the script wasn't completed until 5 days before shooting began in Australia. Very believable. However, the fixes didn't stop there. Once filming was underway, Town was flown in to continue reworking the script, a process that resumed when this movie was in the editing room and finished 2 weeks before the movie was released. Filming took place from April to December 1999, mostly on location in Australia. Interiors were also shot at Disney Studios in Sydney. The opening rock climbing scenes were filmed in Dead Horse State Park, Moab, Utah. Andrew Lesney was the original cinematographer. He left less than a month into shooting due to, quote, stylistic differences with director John Woo. He was replaced by Jeffrey Kimball. I think that worked out okay for Andrew Lesney because he shot the Lord of the Rings trilogy like right around the same time, so he was fine. Won an Oscar for the Fellowship of the Ring, too. Cruise lied to the movie's insurance agents, saying that he would be letting the stunt crew handle all the major action set pieces. In reality, he did about 95% of his own stunts. The rock climbing stunt was done for real. Cruise insisted on doing the stunt 7 times. He did wear a wire that was digitally removed. Woo's first cut of the movie checked in at 3.5 hours. Paramount made it clear the film needed to be 2 hours. Eventually, Woo found himself completely locked out of the editing room. Cruise completely took over. Stuart Baird did uncredited editing on this movie and Lara Croft Tomb Raider for Paramount in order to get the job of directing Star Trek Nemesis. That was a bad move, Anton, because that movie stinks and it set the Star Trek franchise back years.
Paramount loves to make bad decisions with Star Trek, though.
They do. I don't know what they're doing now. I think they saw what Disney did with Star Wars, and they're like, we can run this into the ground, too.
Yeah, but even a less spectacular fashion.
Right, because no one's watching it. Yeah, Tom, did you know there was recently a Star Trek movie released on Paramount Plus?
No. Didn't even come across my radar. Yeah.
Starring Michelle Yeoh as in Section 31.
I tried watching it the other night. I made it about 25 minutes and just shut it off. It's like, I don't need to do this. I had Mission Impossible 2 to watch. This movie was originally rated R. It was re-rated PG-13 after many action scenes were cut and the violence was trimmed down. In early 2000, I don't know if I believe this, but I took this from IMDb trivia, so grain of salt. There was a 163-minute long work print of the film available in some bootleg circles from a stolen VHS copy. It was supposed to be much closer to John Woo's original cut. It had a lot of extended and deleted scenes, including the uncut action and violence, which got the film down to PG-13. However, since then, no copy of the work print has been found.
That sounds like one of those rumors that you hear on the playground in the 90s.
Yeah. I thought I'd mention it with that disclaimer.
It would be substantiated by now.
I think so, right? Yeah. Someone would have talked. 56% Rotten Tomatoes score. Honestly, not as bad as I thought, considering this movie got panned. Tom Cruise made a reported $100 million off this film because he produced it as well as starred in it. So he knew what he was doing. All right, gentlemen, let's talk why wasn't it better. I want to start with John Woo.
Is it a John Woo or is it a John Woo?
I think the latter. Anton, I'm with you. I love John Woo too.
I never saw that one.
It's okay. Hence my tone of my voice. This is hard to quantify for me because it's the most successful film of his career financially, right? And it is a perfect representation of his style, right? If you were analyzing like what's a great representation of John Woo's style, this is a great film to watch. It has all of the John Woo trademarks in it. It is a very John Woo film. Cruise gave him free reign to do whatever he wanted as director, and with the visual style, he wanted it to be different than the first film, right? John Woo did everything that was asked of him, and yet my question for you both is, did it work?
To distill all of my feelings of this film, no. And a more simple answer.
It worked financially, clearly.
Yeah, but I feel like when it comes to the entertainment factor of even watching the film, if everyone is going in for the first time, there's enough on paper to get button seats. But in terms of the reception overall, it's very clear that the reception of this film is just not strong and positive. It's not really rewatchable.
If this was Mission Impossible 1, would we think differently of it?
I don't think I would.
I don't think I would either. I think I would still think it's an inferior. It's not terrible, but I would still think it's like take it or leave it. Like it's not as significant as Mission Impossible 1.
I don't think his style worked for the series, but I also have a lot of problems with this film's plot and some of the characters, and if this had been the first film, I'd still have those problems with the film.
That's fair.
It is interesting how Cruise edited the film himself, because that didn't happen with the other films.
It did happen with Eyes Wide Shut, supposedly, right?
Cruise edited that one?
That's something I remember reading at the time, which is after Kubrick passed away, it still had to be edited, so Cruise finished it.
I don't know.
I would like. We
covered that film, so
yeah,
I can speak to that.
I wasn't aware there was his original version was so long. I would love to see his original cut.
John Woo's?
Yes.
You'd want another 90 minutes of this?
I would want to. Yes, I would want to see it like not tainted. Maybe it's the wrong word, but not through Tom Cruise's editing lens. I'd want to see what he presented.
I mean, there's another aspect to this that we also have to consider, in that John Woo isn't really involved in the writing. So when I think of like his classics like A Better Tomorrow, which have similar flares for melodrama, are we seeing this film from the lens of a writer that wanted to write for Hollywood but with an interpretation of a John Woo film, and then the editing style put on top is just either a stylized down version of John Woo? And then, mind you, also audiences have already seen some John Woo with previous films like Face Off, but probably the biggest introduction, which may have caused even a bit of fatigue, was of course The Matrix.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say how much The Matrix influenced them, if at all, but they had to have seen it, because that came out in March of '99 before they filmed this.
Right. And I'm saying The Matrix was heavily influenced by John Woo.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Among other things, yes.
Right. But when seeing that in theaters with this, there are so many similarities. So I could see audience fatigue as well kind of feeding into this reception over time of, is this kind of a retreaded style that we've seen before?
It's so interesting to just think about this, because they wanted John Woo and they got John Woo, right? They wanted a hit and they got a hit. It made $100 million more than the first one. So it's like, why was it viewed so negatively? And it hasn't changed. I don't think it's helped that they course corrected with the third one and they more or less have followed that same stylistic template sense. So the more movies they make of this in this series, the more and more this feels like an outlier.
The more the first one even feels like an outlier.
Yeah, the first two. But this one just being the less well executed version.
I like John Woo's style. I just don't find it works here. It's too cheesy and too melodramatic. Like the last fight scene on the beach. We were watching this in my house recently. I've mentioned this to you, Anton. We have a lot of family staying with us now. Like, everyone was laughing.
But it's not supposed to be a comedy scene.
It's not.
But part of it is that there's so much built-up tension with the length of some of these scenes, but you can't help but laugh.
It's probably made worse just by the way modern movies are so quick. They don't take their time with scenes, so this feels even more awkward. To your point, Anton, about the tension, and the laugh cuts the tension, right? Like, it's awkward, so you just chuckle. But
the Bourne movies really changed action.
Yes.
And that was only, 2 years after this? Like 2002?
Yeah. Well, the other thing is, though, is that John Woo's isms in Face Off fit the film.
They do, because that movie is so ludicrous.
Right.
Plot.
Yeah, I think overall that film felt like it was an embrace by all involved that we're going to go all in on this. And I wonder if I wonder if there was just enough contention, whether it's the studio having their demands of what has to be done, anything lost in translation with like John Woo and the crew. Because it's big to have one of the most popular foreign directors of all time coming in to do a Hollywood blockbuster. So there's going to be contention on set.
Yeah, because doing the research for this, what I found was apparently Wu was very concerned about competing with De Palma's style on the first one, but Cruise was insistent he wanted Wu's style for this because he loved Wu's style. That's why he hired him. And his goal at the time was to have each movie, each episode, as he referred to them, to be in a different style from a different director. He may have felt that way at the time, but if you look at the series since, I think he clearly moved away from that because the third one was a very clear course correction. And then starting with Ghost Protocol, they're all pretty stylistically similar. Now, it's no coincidence they have had the same director for the past 3 films.
Well, it's also funny when you look, sorry, Anton, when you look at the tiles, like the 4, 5, and 6 with my kids when we watch them, because we watch those ones a lot. It's like, which one is it? Like, I don't know the name to the movie and the tile on the Paramount Plus or whatever streaming service. Like, they all look the same. It's just like, is this the one with the Burj Khalifa, or is this the one with the Opera House, or is this the one with the airplane skydiving? You know, it's just kind of like which is the big scene, and then you kind of know what goes with the rest of the movie. They're almost interchangeable.
I know exactly what you mean. I've had that same confusion where I'm like, which one is that? Where he fights the guy in the bathroom?
Which one are we watching? Right, the bathroom fight, or...
Is that a flaw, do you think?
I don't know, because I think there's a fine line, because then when I compare it to like the Fast and the Furious series, I can't tell them apart, and I don't care to watch any of them anymore. But I would still rewatch, like, especially the later movies.
Mission Impossibles 4, 5, and 6 are like 3 of my all-time favorite action movies. I love them.
And they just kind of hit on those check boxes for you of what is entertaining, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And I agree. I think that on paper and even just execution wise, it's a bit formulaic, but at the same time, like, there's no doubt about it, they're entertaining films. There's no formula to this film.
There isn't. Well, and I said this earlier, and I want to reiterate it. The more they make of these films, the worse this one's going to age. It's only going to get worse.
The only formula or the familiarity to me was the scene when he drops into the duct again. And it's like, oh, yeah, okay, cool. That's where we're waiting for that scene where Tom Cruise descends on a rope and then he evades, detection. Like, that was it. And they didn't even do it well.
No, it wasn't as cool as the first one.
No.
Not as cool.
You can't. The first one's so iconic.
It really is. No guns in that whole sequence, too.
My kids noticed that. They were like, oh, wait, there's no, like, he didn't even have a gun in the first one. Wait, he did. No, that was gum that he threw on the aquarium. Yeah. It's like, they can recall those details, like an 11-year-old can pick it out, like the inconsistency.
And I think it's no coincidence. Of all the directors that worked on the series, John Woo was not asked to return. He's the only one who was not asked to return. So again, if you read between the lines here, because I couldn't find any source that explicitly states this, but I think that he and Cruise clearly clashed far more than what's publicly known. The fact that he wasn't asked back, the fact that Cruise took over the editing process of the film kind of says it all.
I'd agree to those same cookie crumbs if that's the trail that they're leaving. It just begs the question of what really forced the hand of that contention.
It's a mystery, because that's the thing. It's like he wanted John Woo and he got John Woo. It's like I think he realized it wasn't going to work. That's just my theory. Is midway through this, Cruise realized it wasn't the right style for the film, and they were already neck deep in it at that point. But we'll never know. It's certainly the most unique Mission Impossible film. You get all the trademarks of a Mission Impossible film. There's a half dozen, I would say, well-made set pieces. Mm-hmm. The rock climbing scene, the plane hijacking, and the Chimera theft, right? Recruiting Naya in Seville. That's one of my favorite parts, actually, in the car chase with the Porsche and the Audi. We get the racetrack scene, which I wouldn't necessarily call an action scene, but there's a lot of tension there, some Hitchcocky stuff. You get I guess the centerpiece of the film would be the biolab heist.
It's a long scene.
You get the climax at Ambrose's safe house, which is like, is it like a fort? in like Sydney Harbor. It's
Yeah.
some kind of like fort, right? Like an old
Yeah.
abandoned military arsenal, something.
It's a shack.
Yeah, I don't know. And then of course we get the motorcycle chase and the beach fight. I think they're all well filmed. You like again, John Woo doing his thing with the action. If I'm just assessing that, they're all well executed. But were they the right stylistic choices for this series? In retrospect, no. This has the most gunplay of the series, right, Tom? I haven't seen the 7th one.
I don't. At this point, I think there's a level of immunity to noticing it because it's so common. I mean, there's guns are used throughout the rest of the series, but not like this. Not like dueling shootout.
Not
That's
Matrix
not
style
what.
shootouts.
Yeah,
Right.
this
That's not what Mission Impossible is. It's
No.
not like Western gunfights.
this is the John Woo style of trying to tell themes of like brotherhood and masculinity and letting guns do the talking for trying to tell those stories. And even the gunplay feels melodramatic, if that's fair.
It's very fair. It doesn't fit with the rest of the series. Look, I've texted this to you before, Anton. I feel very strongly about this. There are a lot of live action films that I actually think would work better as anime, and this is very high on my list. This would be an amazing anime.
Yeah, I would definitely see that. I think that especially for a lot of scenes that we see where either there's a long follow shot or even just kind of the angles of that of we're seeing of different characters and they're posing. There's a lot of posing in this film.
A lot of posing.
It probably would be more well suited in an anime. But I think that's also, again, more so just the style of John Woo. And I think you could really say that about a lot of his films. They would really translate well to anime.
Face Off would be a better anime, in my opinion.
I love the live action Face Offs.
I'm in the minority.
It's a live cartoon.
It is.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of Face Off.
I thought this one. It's funny the formula that persisted following it. You know, the masks. They didn't use masks nearly as much in the first movie as they did here.
No.
And even thinking back to the first time I saw it, I was like, okay, so there's a little suspension of disbelief with like the ability to just tear the mask off and, you know, like take it off that easily. But now we've just, in every film, it's a big part.
Mm-hmm.
Part of it is, again, we've just become, you know, accustomed to expecting there to be a mask.
Well, what's more suspension of disbelief, that or the throat voice module?
The throat, yeah.
Well, I was going to bring that up. That's not in the first one. If you recall, in the beginning sequence in Prague, when Cruz is impersonating that senator, it's just Cruz doing a Southern accent.
Yeah,
they took that to another level here.
It went too far. It jumped the shark, right?
Yeah.
And then, but also the scene where not DeGray Scott, but the other guy it's a mask, right? It's Cruz's mask. That was they use that almost not cut for cut, but they use that same kind of device in a later one.
They do it one or two too many times because by the time you get to the final mask where Cruz is or where Hunt is impersonating Stamp, you know, when he drags him in, you already know it. Like the whole beauty of the mask thing is that you, especially now because there's been so many movies, you know it's coming, but the trick is not to use it enough so that when it does get revealed, it tricks the audience. And by this point, that was like what, the 4th or 5th mask in the film?
Yeah, like I mean, in almost every scene, they're bringing them in like constantly.
Right. So here's another question: is this more of a John Woo movie to you than a Mission Impossible movie?
I'd say so.
I'd agree, especially before rewatching. If you talked about Mission Impossible 2, the first thought that comes to my mind is the motorcycle fight. Like, and I didn't say motorcycle chase. I said motorcycle fight. Like that part of that scene.
Yeah,
and the doves.
There's doves. Yes, there had to be. Yeah, it's just I feel the same way about Batman Returns. How I said I feel like this is more of a Tim Burton movie than a Batman movie. Same type of deal. By the way, I wasn't making that up. I did time the fight on the beach. It's like 10 minutes.
A lot of very long scenes and fight choreography here. And then how much of that too, the 10 minutes, is them posing?
Oh, you mean where they're just standing there waiting for the kick to come? Yes. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, it's too much. Yeah, you think about the climax on the bullet train in the end of the first one. That is under 3 minutes. It goes by like that. Much better for it. This is 125 minutes, and the first one's about 110. think that's one of the reasons why the first one holds up so much better. I think it's a way better paced film. This does drag a little bit for me around the horse race part. And then, you know, when they kidnap, what's his name, Brendan Gleeson's character, you're kind of like, all right, let's move on. Speaking of moving on, second reason, the plot and the villain. Anton, since we recently covered a Michael Douglas movie, this could be chalked up as Sean Ambrose is horned up and ruins his life.
Ooh, definitely a fun spin-off to the series.
Just imagine if Ambrose, he sees Niag in prison and he's just like, just lets her rot. Nothing happens. His plan works. There's a chimera outbreak in Sydney.
Oh, goodness gracious. But no, that is not what happened here, is it?
No. I wrote down the plot is less complicated from the first film, and then I thought about that more, and I don't think that it is.
That opening sequence is very convoluted.
In the first one or this one?
This one.
Because at face value, you're like, it's just a MacGuffin plot. Like, he has to get this virus. But then you actually think about the mechanics of the plot, and I don't think you should, because the more I tried to analyze this plot, the worse it got for me.
I couldn't get back into trying to. Well, there's no payoff for doing so.
No, it was a horrible decision on my part. Sort of like what happened to us with View to a Kill. You're like,
Yeah.
The more you dig in, you're like, how does the horse racing thing?
Ooh, 2 films with horse racing where
Yes.
I feel like it's a little too long.
But
it's fun to see Thandie Newton on screen.
yeah, she's good. Convincing thief, more convincing than Tanya Roberts as a geologist, maybe? I'd say yes.
I agree with that.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, look, they developed the action first and the story second here. That's kind of all you need to know. I also found this dumber than the first one. You know, we referenced how much more memorable the first one is. This one, like the first one, could you even call it an action movie? Or is it more of a spy movie?
I feel like the first one is a bit more mature than this one, funny enough.
This is
or
a true,
self-realized.
Yeah, this is a true action movie. I guess this would have been a course correction in a way. They just wanted to make it different.
This feels like it was an attempt to be bigger.
For sure. Like we said, not 1, but 2 guns. He's like, I didn't really use a gun in the first one. I'm going to use 2 here. Questions about the plot. Because I was trying to keep track of this. So to start this off, so the Russian guy, Dr. Nikorovich, right? His plan is to inject himself with chimera, and that will make him contagious in 20 hours. He then boards a plane to Atlanta, which I looked this up. That is about a 19-hour flight. That's cutting it pretty close. I understand this is pre 9/11, and you could just kind of breeze through airport security, but like that seems like poor planning on his part. He did have the cure with him, I noticed, but what was his actual plan? What was he going to do once he got to Atlanta? Just give it to the CDC and just hope for the best?
It wasn't thought out, I'll tell you that.
I forgot how poorly this movie starts. So the opening shot is basically like a long shot of like the Sydney skyline and then him, well, Dimitri, talking into the camera. I'm like, man, this is an awful way to start a film.
What is it? We need to make sure we see the Sydney Opera House.
Yeah. They showed that. You can really tell how this movie opens. You know how I read in the production history they were rewriting stuff like day of.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you can really tell. Okay. Ambrose crashes an airliner in the Rockies. That is his plan to get the chimera virus. Well, why?
Didn't need to do it.
No. What did he gain from crashing a plane?
Too much attention.
All he wanted to do was get the virus, right? Like we're all in agreement on that.
Right.
He's impersonating Ethan Hunt. He gets on a plane with Nikorovich in Sydney. He kills Nikorovich and then crashes the plane and parachutes out with his crew in the middle of the Rockies, which that seems dicey. And then they just go back to Sydney and hang out.
It makes no sense why they'd even get on the plane.
Because it doesn't fool IMF.
But does it show how badass his villain is?
Did they do it just to show that he's evil?
If I have to ask the question, I feel like I'm John Woo, and this is probably the best way to display he's evil.
Yeah. I will
it's so
say
elaborate.
It is good acting from Cruise, though, where he's playing. You don't realize it's not really him.
Right.
I do like that kind of stuff. Tom's just staring. Just this plot, man.
It makes my head hurt. Or that, and like, just kind of like, I don't know. Like I don't want to waste the computational power of my brain trying to figure it out.
You just expect more because like Robert Towne wrote Chinatown. You know what I mean? Like it's like an Academy Award winning screenwriter. You're like somewhere along the line there had to be some logic in here because I don't feel this way about the plot of the first film. The plot of the first film is actually like somewhat clever.
Yeah, nice tie into the original series too.
Yeah, the knock list, and he's like, okay, well, we have to catch this mole that tried to frame me, so I'm gonna steal the knock list to draw this guy out. And you're like, okay, like that, I guess that makes sense.
But this delves into, it's another mission in the Mission Impossible series, but with that, it also jumps the shark a bit, as Tom put it earlier.
And Ambrose as the villain, right? I thought it was a missed opportunity because as a former agent who had worked with Hunt, keep calling him Cruz, like I felt like that should have been more interesting than it was. There's the one part before the bio lab break in where he's telling his men, like, I know Hunt, like this is how he's going to infiltrate the building, and you're like, okay, like that's kind of cool. But they don't really interact with each other much other than exchange a few words, and then they fight on a beach at the end. That's kind of it.
Yeah, it's thematically very similar to a lot of John Woo's films, right? Whether there's two partners that are suddenly pitted against each other, like this theme around like former brotherhood. And it's more of a vehicle to those means versus anything to do with like the Mission Impossible series. And it just feels like that. It just feels very like it's like a hallmark of John Woo, but it's not necessarily the meat of the story that really sells itself to anything.
There's no explanation given for why he's doing it other than the obvious, like I'm sure he wants to make a lot of money, but like in the first one, John Voight's character is given a backstory and he actually explains why he turns traitor. It might not be a great reason, but they do explain it. And in here, they don't even make an attempt to. And the thing that baffled me is Hunt and Swanbeck, who is the mission commander played by Anthony Hopkins, they're completely unfazed by the fact that Ambrose did this.
It should be a bigger deal, right?
You'd think, yeah. There's like the one line dialogue. He's like, oh, so you do think Ambrose did it? And he's like, yeah, and they just move on.
There's also something just about using the virus as the threat. In the first one, the knock list, revealing identities, seemed almost more important, or like a more serious. I don't know if it's more realistic, but just when you use a virus, it seems pretty dumbed down version of like the thing they're trying to stop.
Yeah, especially when they have the cure too.
Right. The stakes are too high to be taken seriously.
Yeah, like if the knock list had gotten out in the open in the first one, the average person, like the public, wouldn't have known.
Wouldn't know, right.
Right. But you're right, the characters in it like do take it seriously. Like I remember Ving Rhames' character, Luther, at one point says, like, I'm not going to let this list get out in the open. Like he understands the stakes of it. And in here, they're just like, yeah, you're going to be infectious after 20 hours. And they just like drop her off in downtown Sydney.
Yeah. Storytelling wise too, do we have any ideas for what the virus actually represents thematically?
You mean like what the real world counterpart is?
Or just kind of like, look, with any John Woo film, like doves represent hope, guns actually represent, I don't know, I'm blasting you with my feelings.
Oh, I see what you mean. I don't know, because I don't think it was his story. I don't think he contributed to the virus thing.
Yeah,
hard to say. What do you think? What do you think the real world chimera is? Like Ebola or something? It's kind of what they're implying, right?
Can't we just have a pandemic already?
Dougray Scott, not the greatest actor, because this series has had some pretty good villains. John Voight, you don't know he's a villain until like late in the film, but he's a good actor, right? The third one had Philip Seymour Hoffman. The fourth one has a strange villain because he's not really interacting with Hunt much. But you get into the later ones, I don't know, like Sean Ambrose is, I think, like by far the worst villain in the series.
And do you think it's a bit of overacting or just doesn't sell it well enough?
It's like soap opera level acting from him.
Yeah.
I do kind of like how emotional he gets, though. The random screaming.
Or he loves horse racing.
He was having a ball.
Yeah.
He overdoes all the lines.
Yeah.
He's like, put down 1,000 for me. Like,
yep. Turn up the emotions by 1,000. That's for sure.
When Naya arrives at the dock, it's like, it is really like a soap opera. She's like, however did you find me? He's like, the same way I always find you. Magic. Yeah, my wife groaned at that when she was, ugh. He did seem to care about Stamp, though. He realizes he killed him instead of Hunt.
Yeah, like, that's actually, yeah, that's a good call out. But still, at the same time, not my favorite villain.
No, he stinks.
Or actor.
He took a lot of pleasure in killing Ethan, he thought.
When he shoots him in like the kneecaps.
Yeah.
Shoots him in the knee. Yeah. Oh, God.
What does he say? Like, give us a nice big smile.
Right.
Stop mumbling.
Yeah. I don't know. Solomon Lane is iconic. Like, to me, is iconic.
Yeah, he's
villain.
great.
It's so well done, and this is pales in comparison.
We do get Brendan Gleeson though, who I always enjoy.
Agreed.
John McCloy. But this is another question mark. So he owns the company, right? And then he wants to understand the effects of the Chimera virus. He deliberately infects the first Russian guy with the virus. Like, huh? Isn't that what they test it for? Doesn't make sense. All right, talk about Tandy Newton. Would you bake her a quiche?
Yeah, I would.
Nodding emphatically, yes. Especially in the year 2000.
She's aged gracefully, or at least she did when I last saw her in Westworld.
Yeah, I think, yeah. Have either of you ever seen the film Notorious, the Hitchcock film?
Yep.
Definitely recommended, Tom. It's the same plot as this, where an agent gets a former girlfriend of a suspected former Nazi to go back to him. Really, really worth seeing. It's from like the 40s. Cary Grant's in it. Who plays is Ingrid Bergman? Anton? Believe it's Ingrid Bergman. Really great right. Hitchcock film. Same plot as this.
Hitchcock's directed hundreds of things.
Yeah, he has. But that's a standout of his. I do like Tandy Newton in this. I like her performance.
You want a fun fact about Hitchcock since we're talking Paramount?
Yeah.
Actually, it's very on theme.
Definitely.
So I was just at the Paramount studio tour not too long ago, and they talked about there was a specific soundstage that had been built just enormously for Rear Window. And if you know Rear Window, there's a lot of scenes that had full city sets built out, and Hitchcock wanted actual cars to be driving. He wanted to recreate like city street activity. And after a while, they noticed more and more actors and extras getting sick on set. And they realized it was because all the running cars that they had in the soundstage, all the carbon monoxide was filling up in the soundstage, and people were getting sick. And Hitchcock said, they'll be fine. Let's just keep shooting.
Just keep going. Anthony Hopkins has played Hitchcock in a film. That's a great story. Anton, we are going to start covering Hitchcock next season.
Good time. A legend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You a Hitchcock fan, Tom?
No. I've never gotten into Hitchcock. I mean, I don't have an opinion because I haven't. I don't know enough.
Should.
Haven't
never seen like The Birds. Never seen Rear Window.
North by Northwest.
Fantastic. Psycho. I'm sure.
Psycho. Yeah.
Well, you need to change that. Start with Notorious.
I already Googled it.
It's
check.
It's
I feel like
fantastic movie.
That probably was the first one. I feel like there have to be other movies that are, if not very similar like this one, but movies where put the X back in with the villain.
A fun one that you could do is with your kids. If you watch Rear Window and then you watch Disturbia, which is the more modern version.
I've seen Disturbia.
Yeah. So I'd be interested to see, like, because your kids seem they're very perceptive. So it'd be cool if they're like, "Whoa, this is just like that other film."
I'm actually curious if your kids would like some Hitchcock stuff, because some of his stuff really holds up. Psycho would be
a little much.
Yeah, a little much.
A little
lot.
Still creepy.
I mean, even Disturbia might maybe. I remember that one. I don't think that's rated R, but it might be a little mature.
Yeah, PG-13 for sure.
So we like Tandy Newton in this, right?
Mm-hmm.
We like her with Cruise. Good chemistry.
Not my favorite chemistry.
It does feel forced, the love story. Like they have to basically establish it in 3 minutes. She didn't have a good experience filming this. According to her, Cruise was very stressed about the expectations for the film. He said she had, quote, the shittiest lines, end quote. And they decided to reverse role play each other as practice, but it was unhelpful for her. And it, quote, pushed her into a place of terror and insecurity, end quote. And then reflecting on it later, she said, talking about Cruise, quote, bless him. And I really do mean bless him because he was trying his damnedest, end quote.
That sounds like a horrible work environment.
She didn't enjoy herself on this one, I guess. Sure, it helped her career, though. This would have been a huge break for her.
And she did have, like, the 2000s were kind of Tandy Newton.
Yeah, she had a nice career. She was in she was in Crash.
She was.
She's in Chronicles of Riddick.
She is. She's a real conniver in that movie, a schemer.
And then had a revival in the 2010s.
Right. With that show, right? You said?
Yeah, Westworld.
Haven't seen it, but I haven't seen anything that's show related at this point.
Well, Westworld, they completely abandoned and chucked to a ravine.
Wait, Anthony Hopkins was in that, right?
The first season's the best season.
Without resolution, too, right? It was The first season was the best. I watched the first season and then fell off in the second. But between two of the later seasons, they just pulled the plug, right?
Yeah,
leaving a lot of people upset.
They pulled the plug, never finished the series, and they did the thing where they just completely took it off streaming.
It's just gone.
So unless you have like the previous seasons, it's basically an out-of-print show.
Was that one of the write-downs? One of the Max write-downs?
Yeah. One of the casualties.
Max.
But doesn't that mean it's going to show up on like Tubi?
Ooh, another episode where we get to reference Tubi.
Anton would love that. Anton's trying real hard to get Tubi to sponsor us.
What is the Max, the Warner Brothers Discovery, quote fast net like provider? Not Tubi, not Freevee or whatever Amazon's calling theirs. Is there a Warner Brothers one? Because the value with like a Tubi's Fox, right? The Fox catalog is massive.
But there's a lot from Max that is distributed to Tubi.
Right, because they've sold the rights.
It's basically like, hey, like what's available? Is it in your bargain bin? Can we take it?
Yeah, because they're fiscally irresponsible.
Yeah. Pluto's the other one, right?
Okay, yeah.
That's the Paramount one.
Right.
It would follow that they would have, maybe. Warner does. They like to zag.
They like to make mistakes.
To zazz.
They like to burn money.
Yeah, they do.
Would they cut that debt down to $40 billion recently? Like, congratulations.
Once they get to $30 billion, then they can make another good show.
I was listening to another podcast that talks about the studios. Warner Brothers Discovery actually made more content than I believe that's who it was, than any other, like much more than like a Netflix or another streaming service, because of all the shows they have, that, you know, all the old Discovery shows, Scripps Network,
that makes sense.
HBO shows,
HGTV, Food Network, all that stuff. They pump out.
Okay, that does make sense.
Yeah,
in some sectors,
that's their bread and butter. Low cost.
Sort of related to this, Anton and I were talking the other day we were lamenting about Star Trek and just how the sad state that Paramount has that in. Not a lot of people are watching it, and it's currently just streaming series. Is it just operating at a loss like the Disney stuff did with Star Wars? The financials of this stuff are so mysterious.
But they still have ownership of it, so they can run it to the ground as much as they want.
Back to Mission Impossible 2. I'm so glad they brought back Ving Rhames, because he's obviously been a mainstay of the series ever since.
He's been in every film, right?
He has. I give credit to Cruise, because, you know, Cruise produced the first one. The first Mission Impossible is the first film he ever produced, by the way, which is really cool. He obviously recognized that Luther was a great character and brought him back, and it's just, you know, he's one of the best things about the series.
He was so much more mobile. They had him doing stuff,
and he's
like
not
field agent stuff. Yeah,
I like when he's using the grenade launcher. When the guy, what did he say? He just put a hole in my Gucci jacket or whatever.
In my Versace.
Yeah. He's awesome. This other guy, Billy Baird, played by John Paulson, he's never seen again. I'm okay with it. Richard Roxburgh, he's a pretty well-known character actor as Hugh Stamp. So he's Australian in a movie filmed in Australia, but he decided to give his character a South African accent.
It was a very noticeable change.
And did you recognize Tom Cruise's cousin
on the plane?
He's in the film.
He's in the end too.
Yeah. Wallace.
It's kind of surprising he didn't come back. I mean, they don't need to bring a villain back, but given he was on Lost, right? So given his relationship with
I don't think his character dies in this film, does he?
I don't think so.
I don't really see him coming back in the series, but
right,
you know.
they wouldn't need to, but
maybe in the next one.
Forever he was just Tom Cruise's cousin getting gigs from Tom.
Yeah, he plays basically the exact same role in this film that he does in Swordfish, like the computer thug for the terrorist bad guy. It's pretty funny.
Oh man, Swordfish.
That could have been a John Woo film, right?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
I think that would have been amazing, actually. That
is one of my all-time favorite bad movies. Tom knows this because Tom and I have talked about this film. It's a horrible movie, and I enjoy it.
Oh yeah, it is. That's a very entertaining bad movie.
Yeah, I always wondered when it was going to get a sequel, and they just never committed.
I still remember that one, seeing the VHS cover at Blockbuster. Didn't pick it up, but
I remember wanting to see it because of the obvious reason. And now we can move on to the next reason for Mission Impossible 2, which is the production. This was filmed in Australia. What a complete waste.
Very generic settings, right?
Yeah, there's
how many shots do we need of the Sydney Opera House?
There's a shot of kangaroos for like a second. Yeah, they don't use the Opera House. You're right, Tom.
It could have been a blue screen, green screen, whatever colors.
This could have been in Seattle or Philly or Detroit, and it would have been the same film. There's nothing memorable at all here. And I guarantee you Cruise realized this error, because think about all the films going forward, they would make up for this. If there was some famous landmark building, you best believe that they were going to use it. If this film were made today, they would have used the Sydney Bridge or the Opera House or something like that. Absolutely.
Yeah, and it would have made it, like you said, Pat, the next film was a bit of a course correction, and then the success of that, of course, kind of leads into a very formulaic but successful way of executing the movies.
Yeah. Cheesy dialogue, but I kind of like some of it. I really like the scene where he meets Swanbeck, Anthony Hopkins' character. I wish we had gotten Hopkins back at some point.
He's
in this
so
series.
cool.
He's so entertaining in this
He's
role.
great in everything he's in.
Is he?
I always enjoy myself some Anthony Hopkins.
You liked him in Hannibal?
Okay. There was a lot going against him in that film.
I knew where Pat was going with that. Yeah.
I have to put you at the kiddie table. This isn't mission difficult. It's mission impossible. Difficult should be a walk in the park for you. It's an awesome line. Cracks me up every time. And then to go to bed with a man and lie to him, she's a woman. She's got all the training she needs. It just cuts to him. He's just grinning at Tom Cruise. It's great stuff. That's where you're getting the good Robert Towne dialogue, I think. I actually do like some of the dialogue in here, like all joking aside. Like, we just rolled up a snowball and tossed it into hell. It's got some good lines in it. Because I feel like we're being pretty tough on this movie so far.
It's true. I think the dialogue it's fun, witty dialogue in parts.
Yeah.
I think like it's with the backdrop of melodrama for the most part, which, give or take, it's doable in some scenes.
And that's a staple of this entire series, right? For as great as the action is throughout all these films, the dialogue in the films is equally memorable most of the time.
I gotta put in my favorite line, which is when Ethan is like, "Would it make you feel better if I didn't want you to do this?" And she's like, "Yeah, much better." And he yells in her face, "Then feel better." Like, it's delivered so well. He said that line, I was like, "Oh, I love that line."
Have you wanted to use it now in real life?
Yes. Yeah.
At work?
Oh, I wanted to use it. I haven't.
That stood out to me too. I was like, man, that's like, wouldn't get a great reaction from that. The whole scene where he's impersonating Nikorovich when after they kidnap Gleason's character, that's pretty good. I like all that stuff.
But they do it better in one of the later ones.
Yeah, they do. They really do.
It set a lot, like the stuff that they did poorly here did set them up to do it better later on. And I mean, I don't know, it's not nostalgia to look back, but to see them, it's like, oh yeah, they do that better in that movie, or they do it better, that other thing better. It's like, well, they're really good at it now. Practice makes perfect, maybe.
This really is, we talked about it before, it's the worst use of the masks. Because they use it so brilliantly in the third one and the fourth one. Visually well shot, Anton?
I think in certain parts, again, just not consistently. Some parts it feels like it'd be a really cool commercial, like an Oakley commercial.
Or an Audi commercial?
Or an Audi commercial.
Audi, yeah.
An Oakley commercial. That was absolutely used in an Oakley commercial, wasn't it? Where he throws them towards the camera. This wasn't a 3D movie, right?
No.
But that's such a...
It's such a 3D thing to do.
That's that's strange. Interesting. My favorite shot in the film, I think, is when he's trying to recruit Naya in Seville and she disappears behind the dress of one of the flamenco dancers. Like, I liked all that stuff. That's the kind of John Woo stuff I liked. And then when he leaps out of the skyscraper, dual wielding the Berettas, it's pretty cool. Cruise really jumped, like he was on a wire. He jumped like 50 feet onto like a blue screen airbag. And he did it like a whole bunch of times. And like it is really cool.
It is really cool. I saw that too. And as cheesy as it is, I think like aesthetically I can still really enjoy it.
Yeah.
The two pistol thing, come on, it looks really cool.
The knife in the eye part, that was real. You can tell it's real. It doesn't look like dumb CGI because it's not. Cruise insisted that a real knife be used. That's also in some of the making of stuff where they had it on a cable. And they figured out like how close it needed to get to his eye. It's an iconic shot in the film. They really did course correct because none of the other films would go near this again, thankfully. I forgot how iconic the poster is with like the cut on his face. It's just so burned into my memory as a 12-year-old just going to see this. You know when you're a kid and you go to the movies and you see a poster and you're like, I know it's going to be good because of the poster, which is completely ridiculous, but That's how you think when you're a kid?
I was in a theater and there was a Natural Born Killers poster, and it was like with a group of friends, and I was like, oh, that movie looks really good. And they're like, how do you know, from the poster? And I was like, no, I saw the preview. But yeah, the poster's cool too.
Obviously the poster.
But you can also tell from the poster. Like, oh, okay.
There's a movie we might cover. That's
The Natural Born Killers.
Speaking of aging poorly.
Speaking of Oliver Stone.
Yeah.
It looks like it belongs back in the 90s.
It's a Tarantino script, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's True Romance. It's like a section of True Romance.
Yeah. All the worst parts of True Romance.
The part that, the part they just skipped over. The car ride from the hometown.
Some strange performance. Downey in that movie is like, man.
That was
real
inmates.
Different, I'd say a more distracted version of Downey.
That's a very polite way to put it.
All right, Tom, this is your opportunity. Defend the sunglasses in this
sunglasses film. So we talked about this just before we started recording, but I definitely had more than my fair share of Oakleys back in the day, and this was probably, and not to go way on a tangent about eyewear, but given that all the sunglasses companies are one company, they're all Luxottica now, and they used to have an identity. And back in the day, I mean, like the Dennis Rodman, Oakleys, like they went in on their identity. And yes, now they look very dated, but I still think that there's it's not classic, and it's not as goofy as thinking like, when I was a kid, bell bottoms were like the silly fashion that was too recent to be vintage cool, but not too old to be like contemporary. And that's where I think these Oakleys fall now. I think in another few years, maybe not the ones from this movie, but the ones from this time, there'll be a couple pairs that are like, they're thought of much more highly than maybe, Pat, you do right now.
Do you still have a pair, Tom?
I still have multiple pairs.
All right. Hell yeah, brother.
I didn't say I didn't like them.
The pair I have, and I don't know, did he wear the titanium pair? And is that the pair that he saw the mission and then flicked and they blew up?
I think
when they stuck in the ground? Because I do have that pair. I mean, that pair that was a gift, but those were like $275 in 2000.
2000. Wow.
So that's
and
yeah,
they were like, they're still like, of those other, like the other $100 Oakleys that were the plastic, I forget what they were called. The ones that are the bug-eyed ones, like those they had a shelf life. Like the rubber would get sticky, like the part that would hold it on your head would get sticky, and the lenses would get scratched, and then they were basically unwearable. But the titanium pair is like, still feels like it's brand new.
Well, I still remember at the sunglasses store at the local mall, they had the titanium pair. And so always kind of saw a nice advertisement for Mission Impossible 2.
It was probably that poster. I would say between this movie and The Matrix, that was like the peak of like movie sunglasses that people wanted. I remember everyone wanted the sunglasses from The Matrix and The Matrix Reloaded. Like everyone was trying to get them.
Wow. I mean, I'm Googling live. The vintage Romeos from this movie going for like $1,000 on eBay.
It's like what Top Gun did for Aviators.
Yeah, in a way, yeah.
And like what iRobot did for Chuck Taylor's.
That almost ruined the movie for me, Anton. Like that one.
When he opens up the Chuck
They're
Taylor.
Vintage 2004.
They're vintage.
I was like, really? We're going to cover it. That's on our list.
It's what got me to buy my first pair of Chuck Taylors.
The movie did its job. Thanks, Will Smith.
Yeah. Thanks, Will Smith.
Where do you stand on that movie, Tom? iRobot.
Yo Robot. The first time I saw it was on a bus. Taiwan. A bus ride from Taipei to a province in Taiwan. It was 4 hours through the mountains. I don't know. It holds up okay. The kids, it was entertaining.
Also an Audi commercial.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, not a bad movie. We're going to cover it. We haven't done a Will Smith movie yet. I got a pretty angry email from a listener about that. They were like borderline offended that we hadn't covered. Like, how could you not cover a Will Smith movie after 100 episodes? I'm like, I don't know.
100 episodes without, I mean, because there are plenty that fit the category.
Oh, yeah. Like, I apologize. We'll get on that. We'll try to do one.
Is Focus on the list?
Passed it at that point, wasn't he?
Focus, I watched like a month ago, and I thought it was good.
I Am Legend is on the list. Hancock's on the list. Men in Black 2 is on the list. Bad Boys 2 is on the list. iRobot's on the list. And Ali for Anton.
I like Ollie more than Pat does.
You sure do. I actually am looking forward to covering some of those. Like, I haven't seen Men in Black 2 probably since it came out.
That's an entertaining film.
I don't remember much about it. I remember it being very, very similar to the first one.
Michael Jackson being in it.
Michael Jackson is in it. You're right. But it
it's
doesn't have any kind of a legacy, does it? Who's talking about Men in Black 2?
There are a lot of similarities to like a Batman Returns or Mission Impossible 2 or Fast and the Furious 2 with Men in Black 2.
Well,
Similar
not
themes.
a lot of people are talking about Men in Black in general. I think it died out with the Chris Hemsworth movie?
Yeah, they took it out in the forest and shot it in the back of the head. I'm talking about the series. Like they just executed it with that movie. There's never going to be another Men in Black movie. That was a
sad way to go out. Yeah.
Here's a deep cut, Tom. Did you ever see Men in Black the series?
No.
The animated series on WB Kids. Was that on WB?
Saturday. They'd have it on Saturday mornings. Yeah. Also after school on WB.
Oh no, Tom, you would have been in high school at that point.
Yeah,
so you wouldn't have been caught dead watching that. But man, yeah, no, we're gonna do some Will Smith because we can put focus on the list. I personally think his career was over after he did After Earth with M. Night Shyamalan. I'm just like, okay, we're done.
Is that the one with a clone of himself?
No, that was Gemini Man.
Oh, Gemini Man.
That is one of the worst movies I've ever seen.
Yeah.
After Earth was him and his son on a planet.
Didn't see it.
It was a sci-fi film.
I didn't see it either. I didn't have to.
7 Pounds was the Oscar bait that like really tricked people into thinking it was going to be good.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Anton. Between that and Hancock, that was the beginning of the end for him.
Oh, it was right around the same time period, right? It was just not good.
We're like, what's going on with Will Smith? Man, he owned the 90s. Dominated. Yeah, Gemini Man. Ang Lee should have had his second Oscar taken away for that one, Anton.
Mm-hmm.
You can't defend it either. You're like, nope, that's bad.
I really can't.
Where are we with Mission Impossible 2?
Did we talk about the new metal yet?
We can do that right now.
Yeah.
It's the most dated thing about the film.
The soundtrack.
The whole song. The whole song doesn't stand up. But Limp Bizkit's like hook or riff, whatever you call that part of the guitar.
It's awesome.
Yes, like you remove that from the rest of the song. I don't want to hear Fred Durst singing "Now I Know Why You Want to Hate Me," but I could listen to just like the guitar riff on repeat.
I like the song. I just don't like it in the movie the way it's used. I also thought the opening song, that Iko Iko,
second Tom Cruise movie that's been in at least.
What was the other one again? It was
Rain Man.
Rain Man. That's right.
In the credits.
That's right.
Also composed by Hans Zimmer, the score. Early Hans Zimmer, Rain Man. Yeah, that's the rock climbing scene. I thought that song was dated. I'm like, this is a really 2000 song.
They use that movie. They use that song in movies a lot.
I wrote down it felt like I was watching a Subaru commercial. It reminded me of like Subaru commercials from that era. And I don't quite know why, but it did.
Or a Subaru or a Volkswagen.
Toyota, maybe. Toyota was doing Ole Ole. Remember those? Toyota's hot, hot, hot.
Yeah, if you want to feel nostalgic, you can pull up early 2000s and 90s commercials, and they have like 2-hour-long playlists on YouTube.
By far the most iconic is the Chevy commercials, Like a Rock, the Bob Seger song. You'd just be watching sports and like, every commercial they would play like a 10-second Like a Rock.
I like classic Folgers commercials.
Yeah, I don't blame you. They're comforting.
Yeah. Or J.G. Wentworth.
So the new metal in this first film doesn't suffer from this problem. None of the other films do either.
Yeah, I think it is the fact that it was new metal that was chosen, because that is such a dated music style that has not resurfaced like ever, like not even in a meme way.
No, I think Linkin Park is probably the only one that's held up.
Yeah.
Look, I like Limp Bizkit, but it dates this film in a particular way for sure.
They were definitely going for a broader audience, right? And like the MTV connection here, like Tom Cruise and Ben Stiller doing Tom Cruise and Tom Cruise, the stuntman, right? That was this movie that they're referencing. And if you look at what music was popular at that time with that audience, it was like this or Backstreet Boys and Britney Spears and Christina Aguilera. Right. Yeah. So this is preferable to that. But those were the two genres that were really taken over.
You're right. As for the score itself, composed by Hans Zimmer, I think it's unique for him. I enjoy it. I don't think it's a great score. Pretty heavy on the electronic elements, I should say. It's the most bombastic score in the Mission Impossible series, which I guess fits. Anton, I sent you a couple clips and quizzed you He really borrows heavily from this for The Dark Knight, doesn't he?
Yeah, and not even a little bit, right? Like it's like, oh, that's a Dark Knight theme, isn't it?
I don't want to say my love for the Dark Knight score was diminished a little bit after hearing this, but I didn't know that he had borrowed from this score, and I was like, all the great composers do this. So I don't want to single out Hans Zimmer for this, because James Horner borrows from himself quite a bit.
Yeah, and I think there are enough distinct differences that The Dark Knight is a superior score. So,
not even close. Way better.
Right.
Far more complete score. The score during the car chase, borderline like goofball sounding. It's really just strange. The car chase is strange in general too.
Yeah.
When he's calling her, she's like, "How did you get this number?"
The slow-mo look of fear on her face as they spin around. The cars locked together.
Talk about dated.
Yeah, man. Talk about chemistry,
slow-mo,
and quiche
talk
baking.
About slow-mo.
I have no more notes, so unless either of you do anything to add,
there's so much to be said about how much this film made, but how much it was just basically a send-off for John Woo. Because after this, he gets maybe 2 more films in Hollywood for the most part.
Wind Talkers and then Paycheck, neither of which did well.
And so this really is just it for John Woo. And big film, box office wise, big dud, everything else.
I wonder, like adjusted for inflation, it might be the highest grossing in the series. Still, I might be wrong on that, but like $1 billion in today's money, I mean, pretty good. Because the last one was so expensive to make, it didn't
profit-wise. This one,
that's what I mean. Yeah. Like like the 7th one, the budget was so enormous.
It cost like $1 billion to make it.
Yeah,
I mean, it's.
But like I said, it's just we shouldn't be sad for John Woo. His career continued just fine. He made a lot of money with Red Cliff, which was proof that if given the budget and given free reign, John Woo will make a 6-hour film and is not afraid to do it.
I actually think he's one of the few directors that the smaller the budget, the better off he is.
Yeah.
You think about his best work. What was the budget of The Killer and Hard Boiled? A couple $1 million at most?
Just very small.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's bring this home.
All right.
Tom, you're the guest. You are always going to have the opportunity to go first.
And I've deferred it a few times, but I think today I'm going to take it. So it's been a lot of fun to talk about. It was fun to revisit. It was a little bit of a chore to watch this in preparation versus just put this on and tune out, which would have been a lot easier. The quote or snippet that I would title my rating is, "I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed." The parental, not quite the parental quote where like the kid screwed up and you're not angry with him, you're just disappointed. But that's kind of how I feel with this one. The intentions were good. I was excited to see it. The action it's not bad, but it's disappointing. I think my little title works well. I wouldn't say this is my first choice by a mile in John Woo movies, or John Woo Hollywood movies for that matter. It's nowhere near my first choice for Mission Impossible movies or Tom Cruise movies. But at the time, I was disappointed. I liked it, didn't love it. It was, like I said, not first choice. When there were just 2 of them and I had them both on DVD, I think I would always choose Mission Impossible 1 over Mission Impossible 2. If it's like, let's watch a Mission Impossible movie. So in terms of a rating, it's better than Steven Seagal's On Deadly Ground by a lot. It's not even really comparable, but I think I'm going to give it about a C-. It's not quite worthy of a gentleman's C. It's a C-. I couldn't put it in the D's, so that's where I'll land.
As successful as this film was, it's interesting how the next film in the series would be such a course correction. I think part of that was due to how intelligent Cruise is about knowing what he wants to make and knowing what audiences want. Because, it was a 6-year hiatus between the second and third film. And I'm positive he, like every other Hollywood executive, saw what happened with the Bourne movies and knew that if he was going to make another Mission Impossible film, it would have to be quite different. And it's an interesting decision on his part because of how much money this movie made. A lot of studios would have doubled down on this. Like, well, it made $500 million. Like, what are we doing wrong here? If you want a John Woo movie with his trademark style, Mission Impossible is a great representation of his style. And yet, like you, Tom, I wouldn't recommend this to anyone if they wanted to see a John Woo film. I do think that the action is well done. It just didn't suit what this series needed. There are a lot of things in here, or I shouldn't say a lot. There are things in here that I like. I like Tom Cruise. I like some of the dialogue. But as a sequel to Mission Impossible 1 and as part of this series, it really does deserve its reputation as the black sheep. It's got a lot of boring, cringeworthy moments. Stylistically, it just doesn't fit in with the rest of the series. I like Mission Impossible. I like John Woo, but they didn't go well together. And I rate this film a D.
As I think about what I'm going to give this film score-wise, I have to really check myself in not letting my perceptions of the rest of the more successful films influence how I think about this film, because it really is easy for me to do that. I have just such a stronger preference for every other film in the series. But it is important to note that I do appreciate, certain aspects in the film. It still has, some good dialogue. The action is well choreographed in some scenes, but a little contrived. And I feel like that's, for me, like a lot of this film is I can find aspects that I like, but then there's always a but after it. And I feel like if a film, you have to justify things that you enjoy, or there's always a bit of a sour note to things that you enjoy, it's just not a very enjoyable film. And it's just what's really a bummer for me is that I just really do enjoy John Woo and would have loved to see this film succeed in so many different ways, just not in the box office. But I just don't think it was a very well done film. And there are clearly better ways, story-wise. I just say with a more distinct vision of how to execute on the action choreography, and just even thematically, how are we going to touch on the notes of what makes a Mission Impossible series? They figured it out. And even though this is a very unique film in that, this is one of those cases where it just, again, was not a comfortable fit. But I don't think that everything in it was horrible, but it is not the most rewatchable film for me. And look at me, I keep saying a good thing and then I have to add the but. But with that, I give this film a D.
Not much else to say, really. That's it for Mission Impossible 2. I hope the new one's good.
I hope they land it,
because I still haven't seen the 7th one, and I doubt that I'm going to get around to seeing this new one in theaters. I'm probably going to be occupied, but we'll get around to it eventually. Anton, does it make sense to cover the 3rd one? Because I don't have it currently on our list.
I think that's just more of a we can if we want to, but I don't think it's necessary. I think that's more of a wow, look what happened, that's so great kind of film.
Yeah, I like the 3rd one. Tom, where do you stand on the 3rd one?
It's why wasn't it worse? After this, why wasn't it worse?
Yeah, kind of.
I think the 3rd one's a good segue. It's not really up there for me.
It saved the series.
Yeah,
because if it hadn't worked, there would not have been a 4th one.
It's also in the fun theme of J.J. Abrams still being popular in Hollywood at the time.
That's one of the parts that I like less about it. It's still, his style is so distinct. The lens flares are just out of control.
Yep. That bridge sequence though is pretty spectacular.
Yeah, it's much better than this. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll get around to it eventually. Sounds like we just talked ourselves into it. Well, yeah, Tom, always a pleasure to have you back. I know next season you're going to be on for Tron Legacy.
Yeah, that'll be a good one.
So
I just sent out the invite for that, so we'll do that soon. Because we got to keep this ball rolling.
Yes, sir.
If you're listening on Spotify or Apple, please give us a follow and a 5-star review. Check out our YouTube channel as well. We have subscription levels there. As always, you can find us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And if anyone would like to support us directly, we do have a Patreon. You can find us there and subscribe if you want. That's patreon.com/WWIB official. Links to all of the above are in the description. Thanks for listening and see you next time.